groundwork for the second Trump administration. Former pro football player Scott Turner is Trump's pick for HUD secretary. Turner ran the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council during Trump's first term. He's also involved with the America First Policy Institute. Trump's choice for labor secretary is Republican Congresswoman Lori Chavez Derrimer of Oregon. She is a staunch union ally and one of only a few House Republicans to support major pro-union legislation. The president-elect also named Russell Vought, who was a co-author of Project 2025, to lead the Office of Management and Budget. It's a role he held during Trump's first term as well. He's advocated for the president to have greater control over government agencies such as the FCC and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Let's continue to go through these picks. Trump selected former Republican Congressman Dave Weldon of Florida to lead the CDC. Weldon is a medical doctor who has been critical of the agency and its vaccination program. He's also pushed a long-debunked claim that a preservative used in some vaccines is linked to autism. Meanwhile, Tulsi Gabbard, who is President-elect Trump's pick for the Director of National Intelligence, faces an uphill battle when it comes to her own confirmation, particularly among Republicans on the Senate Intel Committee. Gabbard's set to visit Capitol Hill next week to meet with senators regarding her nomination. She's expected to face real scrutiny for comments she made that appear to echo Russian disinformation, as well as a 2017 visit to Syria, where she met with President Bashar al-Assad. Let's take a look at what Republican Senator James Lankford had to say about Gabbard's nomination yesterday.
Does anything about her concern you?
Well, we'll have lots of questions. She met with Bashar Assad. We'll want to know what the purpose was and what the direction for that was. As a member of Congress, we'll want to get a chance to talk about past comments that she's made and get them into full context. So sure, there's comments that are floating out there, but we want to be able to know the rest of the story.
Meanwhile, several Senate Republicans are rejecting a proposal by Trump's team to forego traditional FBI background checks for the president-elect's high-level cabinet nominees and instead just hand that job over to private investigators. The Hill reports that allowing PIs to vet Trump's top picks could make it easier for some nominees to win Senate confirmation. But GOP senators tell The Hill the FBI should retain its leading role in conducting the background checks because the agency has access to criminal information that private investigators simply can't match. Specifically, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska questioned whether a private investigator could have a personal agenda in carrying out such a check. At the same time, Republican Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee says Americans don't care who conducts the background checks.
I don't think the American public cares who does the background checks. What the American public cares about is to see the mandate that they voted in delivered upon. We need to get to work again. Making our military stronger is absolutely critical, and I think we're looking at a chance to do this.
Speaking of the transition, it's now been weeks, of course, since Donald Trump won the presidential election. Yet his team has still not signed transition agreement documents with the Biden administration. The agreement states that Trump's team will avoid conflicts of interest and impose limits on fundraising, while also providing more than $7 million in federal funds for the transition. This is the very first time that a president-elect has ignored these restrictions, and as the New York Times points out, by dodging the agreement, Mr. Trump can raise unlimited amounts of money from unknown donors to pay for the staff, travel, and office space involved in preparing to take over the government. The paper continues. Those seeking to curry favor with the incoming administration now have the opportunity to donate directly to the winning candidate without their names or potential conflicts ever entering the public sphere. And unlike with campaign contributions, foreign nationals are allowed to donate to the transition. The time goes on. Mr. Trump's transition team has revealed nothing about how much money it hopes to raise, who has contributed to the fund, or how it's spending the money. The Trump's transition team's co-leaders, Linda McMahon and Howard Lutnick, who, we should remind you, have both been named as cabinet picks, have repeatedly said they plan to sign the agreements, but they've missed multiple deadlines to do just that. Joining us now, national politics correspondent for Politico, Adam Wren. Adam, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let's start with your new reporting, which highlights Donald Trump's ties to Project 2025. We should remind viewers that, of course, Project 2025 was closely linked to the Trump team during the campaign. After the Democrats made a real issue of it, Trump tried to distance himself. But yet, as he staffs up, it seems like he's back in their embrace.
That's right, Jonathan. Throughout the campaign, his campaign manager said that this was toxic for them, a toxic issue for them. Howard Lutnick, his transition manager, said that this group had made themselves nuclear. And yet, in the recent days, we've seen him pick a number of people, whether it was FCC Commissioner Brandon Carr, whether it was John Ratcliffe at CIA, or Tom Homan at the Border Czar. All of these people have authored or contributed to Project 2025. And if you look for a through line throughout this cabinet, which other reporters have called a team of randos, one thing that's not random is they all have this connection to the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. I talked to State Senator from Michigan, Mallory McMorrow, who during the DNC in Chicago hoisted this giant Project 2025 prop, and she said this is really sort of the least surprising thing about the transition so far is how many of these folks are connected to this project.
So, I mean, there are some Democrats ruefully noting this again. But let's talk about the uphill battle some of these picks have. We'll talk a little later in the show about Matt Gaetz dropping out already, withdrawing his name to be Attorney General. It seems like the scrutiny now is in particular on Pete Hegseth at DOD and Tulsi Gabbard at DNI. Talk to us a little bit about the opposition to those selections and whether any others might also have a tough road ahead.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. With Tulsi Gabbard, you're going to see serious questions about her ties, whether they exist to Putin, to Russia, some of these foreign travel trips that she's made. And with Pete Hegseth, clearly the energy is focused on this 2017 altercation that he had with a woman, allegedly. His story has changed a little bit about this account, saying that alcohol was involved, saying that it was consensual. His lawyer, of course, denies it, but I think you're going to see some serious questions, and it's possible that we hear from this woman who was involved in this altercation. She's represented by a lawyer here. I think Republican senators on the Hill, there's a handful of them that are really going to press both of these nominees, and I think that we're going to see some significant viewership when it comes to these hearings on Capitol Hill.
And Adam, lastly, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., of course, a lot of headlines about how he'll run a lot of the nation's health agencies. But Trump, over the last couple of days, including in that Friday night blitz of announcements, filled out some of his health team. Give us a read, if you will, as to who they are and what they believe in.
Yeah, I mean, largely these are people who have appeared on Fox News, who Donald Trump has seen. They are people who are largely anti-vaccination. And I think one of the most interesting things is the pushback that we're seeing not only on the left or from the center on some of these picks, but on the right. You've got former Vice President Mike Pence, Donald Trump's own running mate, coming out against RFK Jr., given his stance on abortion issues. It's an open question whether Mike Pence's Capitol Hill group advancing American freedom will spend money to oppose some of these picks. But I'm shocked by the resistance from across all ideological corners to some of these picks, who seem to be knit together by their hope to sort of blow up the system here, whether it's vaccinations or fluoridation of the water system. It's remarkable.
Yeah, and some of these picks, particularly Gaetz, drew so much of the attention early on. But I think some of these health selections, as they become more widely known, a lot of Americans are going to have real questions about what they stand for. Thank you so much for starting us off this morning. National politics correspondent for Politico, Adam Wren. Adam, good to see you. Thank you. Next up here, the latest from overseas, as Israel and Hezbollah trade attacks amid ongoing ceasefire talks. Plus, a Republican senator blocks the promotion of an Army general involved in the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. potentially giving Donald Trump a say in the matter. So we take a live look at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. on this Monday morning. We'll be back with sports and weather and other top headlines.
I grew up in the front row of the spectator section in courtrooms. My father was a Boston cop who became a lawyer, and he had me in the courtrooms all the time. And so everything that happens in courtrooms makes perfect sense to me, and my job is to try to make it make sense to an audience.
It's so important to have work that's inclusive of broader audiences. And you know why? The world is changing every minute. The demographics are changing. There's 1.5 billion people in the world with textured hair, melanin skin. The mix in the world of size and age and lifestyle, and people don't want to be put in a box. There's this rise of individuality. Like, I'm a demand and a stand that you're going to meet my needs. And by the way, you're going to tell my story. So there's the business case for inclusion. And then the other thing is just listening and observing and watching people. And it's in that observation that you are struck by those untold stories, those insights. It serves more than the underserved. And then there are thousands more people that say, wow, that makes sense for me and my need.
Stay informed on the biggest issues of the day. MSNBC has you covered wherever you are. Watch, read, and listen. For the in-depth coverage and analysis you need, stay with MSNBC.
Welcome back as we turn to some of the morning's other top headlines. Israel's defense forces carried out large-scale airstrikes last night in the southern suburbs of Beirut. Hezbollah militants are known to operate out of the neighborhoods that Israel struck. The IDF issued sweeping evacuation warnings for the area ahead of the offensive, the most in a single day so far in the month of November. The New York Times cites analysts as saying yesterday's strikes were designed to pressure Hezbollah into accepting a ceasefire deal on favorable terms.